Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the podcast on negotiation. And today I have a very special guest. With me is Team Berkeley Law from California and New York City. And we will talk about the past edition of the negotiation challenge for students and their experience with our negotiation competition. My name is Remy Smolinski, and I would like to start with an introduction round of our guests. Kavya, would you like to start?
Sure, I can start us off. Hi, everyone. I'm Kavya. I'm a 2L at Berkeley Law. Well, 2L finished, so I guess 3L. Happy about that. We did TNC. We really enjoyed the fact patterns. We enjoyed working with everyone and all of the teams. So really excited and also happy to introduce my rest of my team, Brandon and Sewit. So I'll pass it to them to introduce themselves.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi, I'm Brandon Daly. I am also at Berkeley Law, and I'm going to be a 2L, just finished my 1L year. And yeah, I also really like TNC. It was a really fun competition, and yeah, I really enjoyed the whole thing. And I pass it to Sewit.
Hey everyone, I'm Sewit Baraki. Just finished my first year in law school, about to go to our second. So very excited about that. And I think Kavya and Brandon covered everything in terms of like how we were feeling in terms of the competition.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. I have lots more questions. So let's get going. How did you hear about TNC? How did you come up with this crazy idea to register for the competition?
Should I take that? I'm going to take this one. I actually think this is kind of funny because at least for me, this was my first year on the negotiation team. So I knew nothing about competitions. I found out about them at the beginning of the year, and they were like, tell us what dates you're available. And they just signed us up for TNC. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, let's do this competition. And yeah, we didn't know much going into it. So it was kind of really fun to be able to experience it from an aspect of like, having no idea what I was getting myself into. It was very exciting.
Yeah, I remember Brandon and I were texting about it because it's also my first year on the team, and we didn't get any information in terms of like what to expect about the competition, like what it looked like we didn't know anything. So I remember we were texting back and forth and we were freaking out, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, how do we prepare for this? And then we realized like that's the whole point of the competition. Like you get your facts later than most of the other competitions from what I think they are.
For me, it was a little different. So it's my second year on the ADR team at Berkeley. So I had a chance to do a couple competitions and take a couple of negotiation classes along the way. So for me, I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, but TNC was special. It was a lot different from the more formalized kinds of negotiations I've ever been to. And it was like thinking on your feet, being creative, having like strategy and like recreating your strategy at the table. So it was a completely new experience for me on that front. But I also heard really good things about the competition from previous competitors. So one of our Berkeley Law team who competed last year, who are also, I think they're graduating this year. So that's exciting. I learned from them about the competition and the crazy time zone thing. So I was a bit more prepared on that front, but I couldn't have done it without the rest of my team. So this was a great experience for me.
That's great to hear. So it was a more or less a coincidence and some experience and some word of mouth. Great to hear that. And from the crazy idea of being signed up by someone, right, to actually competing in the competition, did you guys have you guys gone through a structured preparation program? How did you get ready for the actual negotiation rounds?
So I can start us off. From what I know, ADR has a pretty standardized structure in terms of preparation. So during your first year on the team, you get to take an intensive negotiation course. And I think Brandon and Sewit can speak more directly to that since I think they've had it more recently than me. After that, we have spars going in the team. They're kind of preparation for teams that are competing in other competitions and experience building for the other members of the team. So we have opportunities to get spar credits for the team and also prepare. So that's more individualized. And I think for TNC in particular, since it was a very close, like we get fact patterns and then the negotiation is so close that there wasn't really time to do a more formalized sparring session with the rest of the team members. So we did more individualized preparation and more within team preparation. And I'm going to pass it to the rest of my team to kind of just add more color to that.
Yeah, I can add a little bit. So when you try out for the ADR team, if you make it on, you then take the negotiations competition intensive course. And over that course, you learn a lot about the different kinds of negotiation styles, and that there are so many different ways to negotiate, and being, you know, a more aggressive or a more defensive sort of negotiator, they all have different purposes, and you kind of figure out what works for you and your personality. And yeah, like Kavya said, we do a lot of spar rounds and get a lot of exposure to a lot of different kinds of competitions.
And then specifically for TNC, like a few days before, we would all meet on Zoom and kind of go over the fact pattern when it was made available to us. And then we would kind of try to see like what are our interests, what are the potential interests of the opposing side. The fact patterns that required a lot of calculations or trying to figure it out. Shout out to Brandon and Kavya. They were really good with the math. And Brandon is an Excel god. So he was really good with like quickly crunching numbers and like creating the formulas. So when we were actually negotiating, we were able to kind of quickly see the numbers as opposed to like waiting and then going back and forth.
That sounds like a very complete team on the entire spectrum of negotiation skills. And speaking of your experience during the competition, is there anything that you look back as the most memorable moment, the funniest? I don't know, maybe your greatest lessons learned. Anything in particular that stands out in terms of your experience from the past few weeks?
I have thoughts on this one. I really liked the diversity of the experiences that we got to see from this competition. It was so exciting that I honestly never knew what to expect the next competition was going to be about. I was always like, what are we getting ourselves in for today? And you get the fact pattern, and sometimes it's really number crunchy, or the other time we had that discussion about environmental safety standards. And I really loved being able to actually do research on a real world application of something that's going on right now today that I cared about, and being able to also negotiate on it. It was really cool to have that experience, and really exciting to do research on something that's immediately relevant to all of us, you know, global warming. So I loved that. And honestly, for me, I was an engineering undergrad, so all of the number crunching, super big fan. I was like, yay, Excel.
For me too, I really liked researching the different topics. When we had the Egyptian round with Arabia that we were representing, I was looking up ancient Egypt and learning about the history of things too. I think it's the fact that we were able to experience so many different things. I think one time we were looking at the retail industry, another time we were looking at sports contracts. So we were trying to understand the kinds of culture involved in these different industries. And I think that really helped us grow in very diverse ways. And speaking on the point of diversity, the fact that it's a global competition was also super interesting. It's not just the time zones and like the hectic nature of that, but putting that aside, I felt like I saw different teams use quite different strategies depending on where they're located. And the way they were communicating it was different. The way they had teamwork was also different. You had teams where there was one person who's like speaking most of the time and another person who was crunching numbers in the background. And then you had, as you were getting further into the finals, you had teams where everyone was kind of involved, and that kind of speaks volumes too. So it was I guess the best experience for me was being able to observe those and kind of just pick up on these skills where I could apply going forward. And another thing in terms of preparation, Remy, shout out to your book. I actually got it earlier.
Thank you so much. There's at least one person in this room.
Yeah, at least you have one fan who read your book. So as soon as our team signed us up for it, I got into the habit of kind of just looking into the competition more, and I saw the book and I decided to get it. So I guess you could say the rounds weren't like, the facts weren't super surprising in the sense that, because I saw examples of something similar, but again, each round was unique. And that climate change, yeah, shout out to that too. It was a really cool round.
Yeah, it really felt like the competition was very reflective of the world that we live in today, in the sense that we're very globalized and we are going to encounter people from all over doing a whole bunch of different things. And the framework that they come with when it comes to negotiations or conversations in general is shaped by their experiences. So like, as Kavya was mentioning, it was really interesting to see that, and then to try figure out like, okay, this is how they're coming. How do we adjust a little bit so that we either match their energy or we're able to relay what we're saying in a way that they would understand? Or I'm assuming for them too, vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super exciting. So now I have a super reflective and difficult question to you guys. I don't know whether you have thought about it or not, but what is the secret of your success? When I looked up the results, it looked that you nearly won, or you were in the top 3, top 5 of the contestants on all rounds, regardless of how analytical, how open, closed universe they were, but you managed all of them really well. So what was the secret of your success?
I can start us off with this. I think it was preparation for the most part. It was short timed, but I think it was the way we went about preparing. We got our fact pattern. Each of us took our individual stabs at it and kind of just processed it on our own. And then we met up to add and create this living document, or living Excel sheet that we can use. And then we came back and visited it back and forth, kind of just trying to reprocess. I think one secret that just stands out for the most part is when you look at things over and over again, you start to draw more insights. You start to draw new insights. And I think that can be hard when you don't have preparation. So that's one key takeaway I would give to future competing teams.
Yeah. I will say, I think that we had one of the final rounds, I think it was round maybe, where we didn't get as much time to do preparation, and we actually had to crunch numbers really quick. So it was cool that, the competition had these diversities of experiences. So somewhere where you did have to do a lot of preparation, but I think, one of our team's other really good skills that was relevant to this competition is being able to like work together and make our team still like reasonable to the other side. You really had to make sure that you had a good relationship with the other team, because how you came off to the other team was relevant to your final score. So at the end of the day, I think that just trying to be a respectful individual and try to be reasonable with our negotiations while also representing our clients is something that our team focused really hard on doing. And I think that when I was looking back over the scores and seeing like, how did we crunch our numbers and where did our numbers tie up versus like how were other teams evaluating us, I think that we tended to get really high scores in the other side's opinion of how kind we were or how much they'd want to negotiate with us again. So I think that was the secret sauce.
Anything to add, Sewit?
I was actually like,
I think you're breaking off. Is it my internet or?
No, yeah, it's happening on mine too.
Same for me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, so I was actually just looking back on something that we were texting, because on the final round, one of the introductory questions was like, what is our team's superpower? And I wanted to read that off to you because I feel like that was really reflective of how we worked together. So Kavya is very much like the energy of the team. She really brought all of us together. And then Brandon was very good with like his logic and like the numbers and all of that. And then I'm okay like with talking and communicating. So then I feel like all of us kind of brought something that when we came together, like we functioned cohesively.
That sounds really convincing, because I also dug a little bit deeper into your results, and it seems that what you managed to do really well is combining substantive outcome with relational outcome really well. Yeah? So in terms of value engineering, creating and claiming value, you guys did exceptionally well, but it was not at the cost of the relationship. Yeah. So and that's something that doesn't happen very often. Typically, we think that the more value we claim for ourselves, the more strain it will create on the relationships that we build during the negotiation. But you somehow managed to combine one with the other. Yeah. Any thoughts on this? I would. This is one of my upcoming research projects. So if you guys have any directions in which you would like to point me or us to, I'll be very happy to listen to it.
I can. I have some thoughts on this. I think honesty is particularly important when it comes to a negotiation. And I don't think there was any time in all of our rounds where any of us ever said anything that we didn't really mean. And I think just knowing that we're saying what we mean was reflected in the way we communicated. And the other side, I imagine, intuitively picked up on that and knew that they could trust us as counterparts. And we gave deals that we felt were reasonable. We began with asking questions about their interests, sharing our interests as much as we can in that particular moment, depending on our strategy, kind of gaining information and giving information. And through that process, we tried to build a rapport. We didn't go in being very business focused. We were going in to build a relationship and a long lasting relationship. I think in one of our rounds, we started off with how was Greece? Because we totally weren't there at the moment and asking about lunch and stuff like that. I think those kinds of things are important because we're human in nature, and kind of starting off there builds the common ground from where we can start to work through our differences and our opposing interests.
Yeah, I think we also tried to like really respect and hear the other side, and we tried to curate our numbers, I think, in a way where you want the other side to understand that you see their interests and you can see each other's, and instead work together to find where do we each have the most flexibility? How can we both make this the best deal for each of us? And I think that starting off by building this really nice rapport and like being kind to each other, and then getting into how can we be kind to each other in this deal and make it the best financial outcome. And I think that just kind of like translating those two things, it's really tricky, but I think that's kind of the key here.
Anything to add, Sewit?
I feel like they covered it, but it also made me think that like another way to describe or like to capture everything was like we tried to be as just as possible when it came to like how we approached the fact pattern and our interest or whoever we are representing's interest. We weren't trying to make it so that like the goals or the things that we're trying to go for were very extreme in terms of like the scale of how it balanced out in terms of our favor or theirs. So I think maybe that could also have factored into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One last thing to add quickly. I remember one of professor from a negotiation class saying this: if you try to grab all of the value, then the other person won't want to work with you anymore. I don't know, for some reason that line stuck with me, because we want to work together. We want to have a long lasting relationship. That's how business works. That's how life works. And in general, the goal of a negotiation should be to create value at the table as opposed to just making it a fixed sum game. I imagine there are definitely situations where that's the case, where there's a fixed number of resources, but whenever possible, I guess the goal is to create value so that both sides could be happy and can work together going forward in a just way.
Mm-hmm. Very wise words. So empathy, genuine ethics, I've heard, a genuine interest for the other party, the other party's priorities, and then claiming a fair share, but a fair share, right? That is justifiable, that can be defended on reasonable grounds. Thank you so much for your inspiration. I have a few more. I'm looking at cautiously looking at the time, but what is the main difference, in your opinion, between negotiation courses that you have taken and the competitions that you participated in terms of their pedagogical value? What can you learn from one versus what can you learn from the other? What is the value of one and or the other? Yeah? Do you have any thoughts on this maybe? What is the place of negotiation competitions in the spectrum of building negotiation skills?
I will let my teammates start this one. I feel like I've talked too much.
So who would like to take this one?
I can start.
Okay, yeah,
Or do you want to go ahead, Brandon?
No, go ahead. You got it.
Okay. I was thinking the difference that I felt was that when we were in the negotiations class, it was very much absorbing information in terms of the different styles of negotiations that exist, trying to figure out where you fit in within that spectrum. And then during the competition, you had the opportunity to actually practice those skills. So you're able to take the concepts that were just on paper and actually apply it and see what fit you. And I also felt like because you actually felt the stakes, it made the intensity and how you reacted in the instance a lot more real. And I feel like that real aspect is probably what's the most like what I felt like I gained the most from the competition, because it felt I was able to actually think like, oh, these are actually people that have their interests. I have my interests. I actually felt like when it came to for example, when you're representing Manchester United, I really felt like I was representing them and I really wanted their best interest in the end.
So it was in terms of the incentive to put ourselves in the position of the party that, or the constituency that that you guys were representing as negotiators. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Sewit. I think that in the competition in our class, we really got to learn about different kinds of negotiation styles and what we should be thinking about when we're thinking about negotiating in general, and kind of just a general framework of it. And then when we got to do this competition, it was like we were using these practical skills, but we were also going up against people from business schools and other law schools around the country. And I think that having these negotiations with people from different backgrounds and like different education, MBA system or the business system as opposed to law school, it really gives like a lot more life to it. And, working with people other than law students or lawyers to be it's just always interesting, because I think that we think so differently and we think about different values and we worry about different things. So this competition has been a great way to kind of see these different aspects of that come to life. And I wouldn't have gotten that from my class.
Mm-hmm.
For to kind of add on to what Sewit and Brandon were saying, I think negotiations competitions give an opportunity to test out the skills we learned from theory. That's definitely one important thing. And another point is that as we're in a position where we need to change our strategy at a particular situation in time, we're testing out new things to see, okay, so does this way of approaching the situation work with this particular team, or should I be trying something else? You're also in a teamwork environment. One teammate, might you might make a call in that particular situation to say a particular information or propose a particular deal. And you're kind of just like, okay, let me work with that, or let me try to pull that back, or you're kind of in that moment. And I think it also gives an opportunity to figure out your particular style even more. So when you're in class and you're learning these different theories, you can only imagine a hypothetical situation in your mind trying to apply it. But then in a competition, you can apply it and you can see the results right in front of you based on the reactions of the opposing side. And I think with TNC, even more importantly, was the fact that it was very numerical based. So we could see our final result. Okay, so how was our relationship? How was the outcome of our negotiation for the side we were representing, and kind of just see how that came together. The quantification really helped to assess. I remember at one time I thought, okay, so we proposed a deal, we got a result, and then I looked back on that round and I thought, if I could go back, I would probably like tweak this part of what we did. And for us, as the rounds were consecutive, I felt like we got better at that, adjusting our strategy ourselves to approach the other side. And it's like preparation from class and application and competitions are like two wings of a bird. You need one wing to like learn the information and the other wing to apply it. And unless the bird has both wings, it can't fly, right? So that's kind of my perspective on this.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yes, so we are one of the wings, right, with our competitions. Good to hear that. I'm buying this analogy. I'll be using it in the future. So now, guys, imagine the following, right? Many schools, many universities that take part in our competition have structured preparation programs in which the older teams that have participated already take care of their successors, and help them, coach them, and help them sort of prepare for what is to come. Yeah? So what are the key recommendations that you guys would give to your younger colleagues? Well, or who would consider applying or registering for TNC 2020, 2023, I think it will be.
I would definitely say preparedness. I think that this is a competition where when you get the fact pattern, you want to look at it, you want to understand it, you want to get with your teammates, you want to crunch numbers, figure out what do you think the number is that you should be going for? Like, what kind of value do we think is a reasonable one? And sometimes you're shocked. You go into the competition and you end up with way more money than you thought you were going to get. And other times it was way tighter than you thought it would be. And you really had to think, like, how can I be reasonable to this other person when the range is so tight? So I think really testing out the numbers and also working with your team and getting sort of a pre-understanding of how we might work together on this, and how we might work through the competition. Are we going to have like an Excel spreadsheet where we just type the numbers in, and is there going to be one person who votes for the whole team, or do we need to take time aside? So yeah,
it was also I think Brandon said it all, but one additional thing I want to quickly add is, like, in our discussions, I thought it was also super important for us to tease out the values and the interests of our side in particular, and then rank those interests if you can. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's during the competition where you actually figure out whether an interest is as important as you thought. So kind of just, it's important to learn to think on your feet, but preparation and kind of having your interests in mind and being goal oriented is super important to kind of have a target. Mm-hmm. So this is what the number I want to aim for, or at least try to aim for. Having that ballpark range is super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think oh, sorry, Remy. I was going to add that two things came to mind. One would be being detached from the outcome. So like really going in and trying your best, and then sometimes getting or being flexible also within that instance, because things will get thrown at you that you didn't necessarily prepare for. So being detached, I think, allows whoever's in the competition to really work with whatever is being thrown at them in the moment. And then I think the second thing I thought of is being fearless, because I think for Brandon and I, actually even Kavya, this was the first time that we all competed in TNC, and at first we were freaking out because we didn't know what to expect. But I think like just going for it, if someone or if a team is thinking about signing up, I think they should definitely do it, because it's a great opportunity and you get to practice your negotiation skills that you've been learning throughout your years or your life.
Yeah, I agree. Just to add on to that really quick, this being my first competition, I did not expect to win. I didn't even expect to make it to the finals. And it was so awesome to be able to like experience that for my first competition. So absolutely be fearless. Just do it.
Just do it. All right, that sounds great. How about great negotiators? I always ask this question to all my guests in terms of their inspiration, their role models when it comes to greatness in negotiation. Is there anyone any contemporary person or historical person that comes to your mind, that pops into your mind when it comes to hey, this is how I would like to negotiate at some point? Yeah, great negotiators. Kavya, would you like to start?
Sure. So I think one of the negotiators that comes to my mind right now would be Chris Voss. He did that book. Let me look that up really quick. Never Split the Difference. Yeah, do you have that too, Remy? It's a great book. Yeah. So one thing I think I really took away from that book was about staying in the moment. He talks about how theory is important, but then he talks about being in the moment, responding to the other side. And I think that's the kind of negotiator I would like to be, someone who can be in the moment, notice the other side, remember my goal, and kind of just go for it, right? So yeah, pass it to Brandon.
Yeah, I remember seeing this question beforehand and I was thinking to myself, Joseph Halloum, which I don't know how famous he is like around the world, but he's definitely famous at Berkeley Law, and he like has the negotiation competition here. And I think that he stands for a lot of really great negotiation values. And, you know, I think he's a great role model for negotiating.
I think for me, I'm new to the negotiation world, so I don't think I've been fully exposed to all the wonderful negotiators that are out there. But I feel like participating in this competition and seeing how everyone was interacting with each other and all the skill sets that I saw people put into practice allowed me to see a lot of great negotiation.
Thank you so much. And my final question, life doesn't end with TNC, right? So what are your plans? What are your plans for the future, near and a little bit more distant? So after law school, during the next years of the law school and beyond. Sewit, would you like to start this time? Let's reverse the sequence.
Yeah, sure. So this summer, I'll actually also be in New York with Kavya. I'm going to be working at a law firm. In terms of my long-term plans, it's honestly to be determined. Law school is a space that really allows you to explore a lot of different elements of the law and how you fit into that. So I'm really trying to utilize these next 2 years while I'm in law school to try to figure out what the rest of my life is going to look like.
I can go.
You're in the middle, regardless of the sequence. You're always in the middle.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Am I going or is Kavya?
Should I go? You can,
go. You can go.
Change your perpetual middle spot. Yeah. So for me, I'm interning this summer at Quinn Emanuel. After law school, I haven't thought about it. I mean, I have thought about it. It's just, it's really amorphous at the moment, but I'm thinking of continuing at a law firm before considering about other options, whether it's to look to see whether a more government-oriented position is better, or maybe see if in-house counsel might be a better way to go. I think both sides would probably present a good opportunity to try negotiation skills in different contexts. Yeah, so I'll pass to Brandon.
Yeah. So this summer, I'm going to be a summer associate at Morrison and Forrester, which is a law firm out here in San Francisco. And I'm going to be working in their intellectual property litigation department on a lot of patent stuff. So I'm really excited about that. I was a patent agent before, so I like doing all of the science. And yeah, I guess long-term goals, I definitely want to work at a firm, but really, really long-term goals, I would love to be involved in academia.
Well, that sounds awesome. So let's keep in touch. Maybe we'll have some touch points in the future. Would be super happy if our paths would cross again. So congratulations, 2022 negotiation world champions. You guys did an awesome job, and it was a delight to have you guys with us. Kavya, Brandon, Sewit, thank you so much for your time. All the best for your careers, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you,
Remy.
We really appreciate it, and we're also really thankful to the judges. I think, yeah, so it was great experience for us, and really thankful for the opposing teams as well. We learned a lot from them.
All right, thank you so much. I'll pass it on.